Right, hello there everyone, welcome back to James Redmond TV, and don't say that I am not the postman, because I know when I do bring guests on this channel, very rare occasion, but when I do, I know I always deliver. In this case, I've gone with one of the big dogs on YouTube, what I believe is actually a real pioneer. He's made one of the best shows, in my opinion, the best show, but obviously I'm sure there'll be a few other people who'll throw a few other names into the hat. My opinion, #1 show on YouTube, fastest growing show on YouTube, and this is the mastermind behind it. So Turkish, thank you for coming on to my channel.
Nah, James, man, love for that. I love that intro, man. It's all love. It's always all love. You know, you've been on the channel before. You've been on the Big Six before. We're due to do more content together moving forward. I'm just, you've got your channel up and running again, and you're consistent again, because that's what I wanted to see, man. Because I missed you over the last couple, well, not years, but you know, you have been quiet here and there, and it's nice to see you out there. Because I put you, in terms of the Liverpool fans online, I hold you in high regard.
No, appreciate that, brother. And the reason why I wanted to get you on the channel specifically, Turk, is because what I am a massive advocate of is, whether your opinion or point of view is controversial, it is always to open discussion in the comments down below. It's about discussion. It's about finding a rational common ground, whether you agree or disagree. I appreciate a debate. I appreciate a discussion. And I think you're someone who's going to be good to talk about the game, touch on some of the decisions that that happened throughout, and just the performance overall. And as you're like, I'll probably say one of the more level-headed people on the Big Six, just my opinion might be controversial. I want to know what you think the solutions are for Liverpool going forward, because I don't think it's even watch the Big Six. I saw everyone going after Grizz. Felt like defending him. Do you know, like when your mates, do you know, like if you're just, I don't know, if you're in school or whatever and you look outside the window and your mate's getting jumped by 5 people and you can't do nothing. But the first thing I want to ask about is the decisions, Turkish. It's been the #1 thing from Liverpool fans about, we were robbed. Alex was on the podcast earlier today talking about how he was robbed, or we were robbed as a team. What's your opinions on the different decisions when you break them down individually?
You know what? Listen, like you said, I'm level-headed, and when we get into each individual decision, I'm going to give you my honest perception. But overall, I do think it swings and roundabouts. I tend not to blame referees when there are obvious refereeing errors, and you can lay blame to them, because over the years, Arsenal have got their fair share of let's say, decisions that could have gone either way, tended to have gone against us. If I look at the Liverpool game overall, I think it's give and take. I look at the first Liverpool goal and I say to myself, Núñez, is he interfering in play in that offside position when the ball's lofted in the air and Gabriel kind of sees him on his shoulder? Listen, Gabriel should have got rid of the ball. Him trying to bring it down in that moment, it was the incorrect thing to do. And, you know, you get a goal from it. Looking back, I guess he is interfering in play in some shape or form. So that could have easily been given as offside, and I don't think there would have been much complaints otherwise. Because it just comes down to deciding whether Gabriel's been influenced by Núñez, and I don't think any camera can really make you decisive in that decision. We don't really know. So that one kind of, in my opinion, went in your favor. Then you have, let's say, the handball in the first half. Gabriel, first instinct, I look at it, I say, oof, we got away with one. Recently, I've seen a clip floating about that. It hits his belly, midriff/chest before hitting his arm. And then you go to the rule book and it kind of says that if that is the case, then it depends on the proximity, how close the player is to the other player, you're kicking the ball and so on. I guess I can understand why it hasn't been given. Again, Arsenal in the past, I think, was it Burnley last couple seasons ago when Pepe was running through, there was a similar sort of handball that wasn't given. And I look back at that and I say, listen, sometimes they're given, sometimes they're not. If it was given, would I have been aggrieved? Would I have said it's harsh? Probably not. I would have probably just said, listen, Gabriel, you need to keep your arms down. But it wasn't given. And then you go into the second half, Tsimikas on Jesus. Was there intent behind that arm swinging? Was there not intent? It's hard to really justify with videos again. And then you go to our penalty, Jesus and Thiago, which I'll be the first to admit is very soft. I always mention how football's changed over the last 10, 15, 20 years, from what I knew it was to what I see it now. From what I knew it was, that penalty is in no way a penalty. From what football is today and the soft nature of some of the decisions being given, players play on that now. Players know that if they go VAR and there's that moment where you nick the ball just before the opposition player, where it's quite harsh. There's not much you can do about it if you're both going for the ball. They tend to now be given as free kicks, as penalties, so on. So the majority of decisions throughout the game, they could have gone either way. And I guess through the years and through the ups and downs of the way the referees use VAR, it's led to some controversy in this game. I just look at it and say, I think they balanced themselves out even in the game itself.
No, fair enough. Just to even break down on a few points that you said there. So, starting off with the Thiago Gabriel Jesus one, I 100% agree with you. Now, that is a decision that I think, you know what, I'm 50-50 there. Could have went either way. In today's game, with the standards that are set, with the penalties that I've seen given and not overturned, I definitely think that that's one that you can give a penalty. Whether you think it should be or not, whether you think it's too soft or not, that's the premise that has been set by modern day football, whether you like it or you don't. So I agree there. The one that I will question, and I used an example today on Hot Topics, and I know that there's differences, but the way I saw the Gabriel handball specifically, I saw that situation as I didn't have an issue with how close the player was. It was fairly close. It was difficult. I didn't have an issue with the fact it went off his chest and went onto his hands. And I'm like you. I don't blame referees. The first thing they said after the game is, we weren't good enough. So why are we going to use the referee thing as we could have won when we still... All that does is put a temporary plaster on a very infected wound. And the last thing you want to do is neglect what the actual problem is. But in that instance, I just think if it's gone off his chest onto his hands, which is essentially, I don't know if you agree with where his hand was, but around this area, bit not really natural, or what I would say natural. It reminds me of the Thierry Henry handball, besides the fact it was a goal, but against Ireland. You know, it went off his chest, it went onto his hands, and in hindsight, people have said 100% that obviously should have been a handball. I think the premise is similar, just the circumstance is different in this case. So I do think, as far as any stonewall decisions in the game, that was one of them. I don't think Shimikas and Jesus was one. I thought momentum just kind of went against where Shimikas was and where Gabriel Jesus was going, and I think Gabriel Jesus was looking for some sort of connection, but it just sort not kind of what he got. No one wants to run right into an elbow unless you're like a WWE wrestler or something like that. But either way, I think the way that you've just described those different events in the game was fair. What do you think about the Saka offside and it wasn't caught on VAR? I don't know if you've seen anything about that, and I don't know if you've created an opinion on it. But it's been circulating today.
Yeah, I've read tweets here and there about it, and I've read WhatsApp messages about it. All I remember is in the game, they did show an angle where both of them was in the shot, and I don't remember them drawing lines, but I don't remember myself thinking, oh, he's offside in that moment. I thought it was close.
Yeah.
But the fact that no lines were drawn, I just assumed at that time that it wasn't as close as it may look on the screen, so they've just given it. Obviously, after you find out that the camera angles and whatnot, apparently none of them have Saka in shot and so on.
Five different cameras, and not one of them supposedly had him in shot. And I think the ones that they did have him in shot in was just a normal game cameras, and they never drew the lines because they weren't able to draw the lines because none of them cameras were for VAR itself. So I think that's another one that I can sit there and go, do you know what? Even if he was offside, I never noticed it either. I even said watching the watch along, I don't know if you saw me match highlights, but I was sort of saying like, no, we're going to be fine. This is going to be given offside. Next clip. Doesn't look offside to me. Does not look offside to me because it didn't. But I do think there's a premise there to where that's very poor. I don't know if you agree, Turkish, but poor for the top referee, the top league, and supposedly top refereeing standard in this country. But like you said, though, they just haven't been showing that over recent time or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, of course it's poor, because when you hear that, you just think to yourself, well, you implemented VAR to not be able to cover a certain angle or not be able to see a player in shot with 5 available cameras. It's a bit weird. I can't lie. I look at the Champions League model and I look at how they utilize VAR on offside calls. They bring the blue and white screen together. They show exactly where that offside is called and you know, the distance and whatnot. I think we should just take that and bring it over here, because you are right. Like, to hear that a player wasn't caught in the frame of all 5 cameras, it doesn't really make sense. It doesn't really, you know, knock back the whole, oh, well, we got done by referees comments after the game, because you want referees to be absolute in their decisions. When you have video assistant, you want them to be 100%. And that's tended to be the problem over the years. They have a video, they see it, they draw lines, whether it's offside, whether it's a red card, and they make a decision off it. This time around, we hear that they didn't have that to make a decision. So I'm not really too sure what to make of it. All I know is that generally I'm against VAR the way it's been implemented, and if they are to change it, it should go down the Champions League model, because I look at that and I think it's far more definitive than what we're seeing here.
I agree. I think, do you know what? Good points raised, I'm to conclude that part of this show specifically. I'm just on the page of, listen. I saw a tweet about like 4 decisions that could have been red cards when it was going in Liverpool's way, and Mane and a bunch of other situations to where, yeah, that definitely could have been a red. It happens in football. It's why I don't think it's ever right to rely on referees making good decisions when you're going into the game knowing these making consistent choices. And if you're going to just bank on that to win you football matches, then that's a team that's gone from getting 90 plus points to have set their standards very, very low, in my opinion. So I'm not on the bandwagon of people who are saying Arsenal didn't deserve to win. I do think they did. Speaking of Arsenal, you're good at footy. Congratulations. It took you a while. First time since me being on YouTube, you've been decent at footy for like a decent period of time.
Yeah, I can't lie to you. It's refreshing for me. I don't know. Some of my haters think, oh, look, you didn't believe in this, you didn't trust. But listen, obviously, when you're finishing back-to-back 8th place finishes and you've brought in a manager that's quite inexperienced into a mess, because a few years ago Arsenal were a mess, from the players on the pitch to the boardroom to the fans being divided and so on. I just thought the inexperienced man coming in, finishing 8th in his first season, albeit an FA Cup, when he first came in. Of course, I was doubtful, to say the least, maybe overly critical. Now we look at what he's producing and how far we've come since he's come in, and I can't give him enough plaudits. And him being Mikel Arteta, I think he deserves a lot of credit, not only for the on-the-pitch performances, but the way he's connected the fan base to the club again. James, and Liverpool and at the Anfield atmosphere, not just over the years, in my whole lifetime, it's talked about how intense it is going to Anfield in the pressure cooker game, the big games, and how you lot are the 12th man and the best fans in the league and so on. Well, I don't think there's an argument this season that Arsenal fans have been the best fans in the league. I honestly, from where we've come to where we are now, home and away, when you watch on TV, you hear Arsenal fans. If it's an away game, you hear Arsenal fans. And I think Mikel deserves the most credit for that. But like you said, we're playing good football. It's about time. And long may it continue. This was a big one for us. Liverpool, Manchester City have really set levels in the past few years. So although there's a big 6 group, Liverpool and Man City pretty much chair that group at the top. Chelsea, United, Tottenham are a test, 100%. They're a bigger test than the Wolves, Leicesters, Aston Villas, and so on. But I think Liverpool and Man City are a bigger test than those 3 clubs, Chelsea, United, Tottenham. So as much as we failed against United at Old Trafford, we've managed to pick ourselves up, beat Brentford 3-0 away, which is no easy task, beat Tottenham 3-1 at home, which, all right, we usually do, and now beat Liverpool at home, which is not something we usually do. We're top of the league. We're moving into a period where I think there's about 5 games left, 6 games left before the World Cup commences, and we have I was going to say a little break. It's quite a big break. If Arsenal can maneuver themselves into a first, second position going into that period before our Boxing Day fixture comes up against West Ham, you know what? I'm not going to say title challenge, but we are most definitely...
Come on, Turkish. Just say that you think that you could be in a title challenge. It's not a bad thing to say. And it's not even me trying to get you to say it, by the way, so then I can say I got Turkish to say it, and then I can give skullfuggery ammo and stuff like that. Not even that. All I'm suggesting... do you remember when it came on FTV? Do you remember anything about that discussion that we had?
I remember.
Yeah, I know you've done a lot of content since, so understandable if not. The point is, I said on that video... many people, and I think it's been faded because we like to categorise football and condense football into the last 10 years. Oh, so if it's happened in the last 10 years, that's the way football is, when really that's not truly the case. What I mean is that in recent history, the idea based on Chelsea and many other teams, it's get a new manager in. Once they start doing bad, let them go, and then boom, the merry-go-round will continue, invest well and get trophies and la-di-da-di-da, boom and flying. But the one thing that's shown in recent history, if we don't just condense it into the last 10 years, the most successful football teams, the 2 best managers in the Premier League era, were there for years on end. Now, understandable. Arsene Wenger nearly ruined his legacy, but I think hindsight has really proven that really he wasn't doing too bad. I mean, yeah, maybe change was needed, but it weren't terrible, at least in my opinion. Sir Alex, very similar. You gave him time. He won a lot of trophies. Jurgen Klopp, success didn't come overnight. It was very much a progress. It was very much 2-3 seasons, and then it was the 90 points, and it was competing in all competitions. And Mikel Arteta, he reminds me. So say if your ma say she's just a bit crazy, gets with a few fellas. Say your ma's new fella is Arteta, but it used to be Arsene Wenger, who's a rich fella. He's got loads of dough and he's just very, very bougie. Mikel Arteta is now this new fella who does not have as much money, and the kids are fuming. Arsenal fans being used, by the way, use of the kids, and use are fuming because he doesn't offer the free, the sick cars, the nice house, all these things. He still provides you with a house. He still provides you with food, and he actually provides you with good life knowledge, and he's actually better for you in the long term. But because yous are all a bunch of bougie bastards who are used to winning trophies season in, season out, you thought, yeah, I'm going to get rid of Arteta. So I think it's important, football fans, and I think this is a huge lesson. I don't want to just throw you into the category, Turkish, but loads of Arsenal fans, I think it's an important lesson that when you do see the right things, which some Arsenal fans did, you've got to give that manager time. You've got to give him time to blossom. You've got to give him time to implement ideas. And if you think he's just going to change that in a football club like that overnight, you're not really going to get very far. So I see like Grizz defending Arsenal, and I think it's very logical. I see some Arsenal fans defend, Arteta, and I do think it's very logical, and I think Arsenal fans doing the same thing. Some don't go with logic, but a lot of people have been proven right in hindsight. Now, can he sustain this? Will he get the investment? Remains to be seen. But I don't know if you agree with that premise. I don't know if you agree with the way Arteta has moulded himself into a good manager and simply proven a lot of people wrong.
I completely agree with everything. I mean, when we were on the back end of Wenger, and obviously I was very vocal about wanting Wenger out, I think I said in multiple interviews on AFTV, I said, I don't want to be a club where we chop and change managers. I want them to have a succession plan. I want them to know what's coming after Wenger and know what's coming after that man too, just in case, because Wenger was here for so long. The next man's going to have a lot of pressure on his shoulders. The next man being Unai Emery. And I guess that period, that year and a half in between, that's when the succession plan probably really got put into full effect. And that succession plan was Mikel Arteta. It's just that when you go from Arsene Wenger, who, like you said, is one of the greatest managers in this Premier League era, you go from Mikel Arteta to Unai Emery, who in the Europa League has a very, very strong record. And that is the competition we were in at that time. Albeit he takes us to the final, so that kind of justifies his good record there. He didn't take us over the line, and things unraveled pretty quickly after. Mikel came into, I'm going to say it again, I don't think mess justifies where we was at Arsenal.
You were in a bad place.
A bad place. I mentioned it. Was it on the Big Six? I mentioned it. No, maybe on AFTV. I haven't seen a British club so disconnected from its fans as Arsenal were with their fans in 2019, 2020, let's say. So when Mikel came in, it just felt like you've gone for someone who's never been a manager off the back of maybe rumours that he can be a good manager. It just didn't sit well. I just thought at the time that this ownership is trying to pull a fast one again. Bring in an ex-player who is an ex-captain who's one-sided with the club and put a new face to it. I felt like they used Wenger. They used Wenger's face. They used his credentials, similar to how I believe that the Liverpool board will use Klopp in the next year, 2 years, to kind of avoid the shitstorm that might come their way. I think Klopp is the shield to them, like Wenger was the shield to Kroenke. I don't think the situation was all on Wenger. Like I don't think the Liverpool situation is all on Klopp. But the more they defend the big man upstairs, which is the owners, the more they make themselves the target. So when Mikel came, I just thought he's a new shield for these owners. Little by little, he said the right things. He started doing the right things. Results didn't necessarily follow straight away. And I guess that's where you make your point. You can't expect it straight away, especially when you're in the mess you're in. And I didn't expect it straight away. I just didn't expect to have progressed, I guess, as much as we have in 2.5, nearly 3 years, because it's going to be 3 years in December with Mikel Arteta. As much as people like to say the narrative that he's been here 3 full seasons, he spent 500 mil. He hasn't. He spent roughly just over 300 mil. He's been here 2.5 years. So he's really kind of shut people like me up, shut people that are completely against him up. And not only that, but brought us closer to the club. I'm feeling in love with Arsenal again in terms of what I'm seeing on the pitch, the players I'm seeing, the application, the passion, the emotion, the All or Nothing documentary. I winced at the idea of it. It comes in just after we finish 8th. We have a summer transfer window where Ben White comes in, Aaron Ramsdale comes in amongst other players. not the biggest names in world football, and a lot of Arsenal fans had doubt about it. But listen, we finished fifth. We didn't get over the line in the end, but All or Nothing gave us an insight into Mikel. One question I had about Mikel is he just this nice guy that's going to protect the players like Wenger did? But what the All or Nothing documentary proved was no. Like, if there's something to say, he won't say it in front of the TV, he won't say it in front of media, maybe like Conte might or Jose Mourinho might. He'll tell the media what he believes he needs to tell them, the bare minimum, and he'll go into the back and sort them out. And we was 1-0 up against Everton at half-time. He comes in and he's furious. He expects more. He wants more. Similar to other half-time, full-time team talks he delivered. It made me believe in him some more, because that's how you set standards. You know, you can't let anything slip. He mentioned in January how you need to maximize every transfer window to keep up with the best. He's always saying the right things. I think it's just come to a point where what he's been doing, what he's been saying is working, and it's in full flow at the moment in time. And I say full flow, and you tell me to say winning the league. It's hard to say winning the league when you see Manchester City with Haaland, and you expect Haaland to break records, De Bruyne to break records if Haaland stays fit. It's going to be a tough ask. But all I really want from Arsenal, there's no divine right to win the league. There's Arsenal, there's Manchester City, there's Liverpool, there's Chelsea, there's Man United. I'm going to leave Tottenham out of this, but there's 4 or 5 clubs that do a lot in the summer to warrant maybe a title challenge, a title win. There's only one title up for grabs. So there's no divine right to win it. But at Arsenal, what I'm used to growing up, not in recent times, growing up, is challenging. That's the bare minimum I think they should give us fans. Liverpool's owners should give you fans, and so on for the big clubs. Challenge. It's not about just winning it. It's about giving us moments, giving us hope, belief.
That's it. It's the moments for me, you know, Turkish. It's the moments. It's the journey and the moments that creates, and the memories that therefore will give. The semi-finals, the finals, and whether you win or lose, you can talk about the path to there, and that's what football's about. It's, you know, we talk about football on a culture basis. It's gone so much bigger to where there's so many more fans from all over the world who might not be able to engulf the culture as much as others. But what do we all feed for? We feed off success, but we also feed off the possibility of success. Let's be honest, right? Any trophy that you've ever won, what was the most exciting part? Yeah, winning it, because you then can go and chat shit to your mates. But it was the build-up. It was the thing that leading towards the game where you're thinking it would be unbelievable. That's it. It would be unbelievable if we walked out today with the trophy. I can celebrate. Don't have to worry about like people having a go at me. It can just be a nice time. So I think there's a great premise there. I think Arteta has improved the culture. I think he's done a phenomenal. The documentary was a big thing for me. The way he talks to players, the way he articulates himself, and most importantly, the standards that he sets, and the fact that he's willing to be able to rotate and stuff. You can tell he's a Pep Guardiola graduate. You can tell, but that's the best thing. And he's implemented his side of the game, but he's still a Lego head, and he was still mediocre for Everton. He's boss at Everton. He was boss at Everton. Turkish, I know I said 20 minutes. Can I ask you one more question, if that's okay?
No worries, come on.
Last question, lads. Because this is sort of, well, I'm trying to make it more of a football channel, but there's a Liverpool badge in the background. Liverpool, many problems. If you can identify the biggest problem or a couple of problems of why we're so crap at the moment, what are they, and can we bounce back?
Owners, American owners. And, you know, this is nothing against American people. It's just the American owners at the biggest clubs, when compared to other owners of other clubs, they don't really cut the mustard. And I know a lot of people might say, well, you know, in terms of how the American owners like to run their clubs, it's about profit, it's about sustainability and the right way to do it. But when you're competing with juggernauts that just have an open checkbook, you want your owners to be a bit more flexible, a bit more maybe shrewd in the market. We hear all the time about Manchester City's sponsorships, investments just being a PO box or just being a new startup business out of nowhere. Listen, if they can do it, I look at that and my first thing is like, oh, they're fucking disgrace. My first thing is, well, if they can do it, let's fucking do the same thing. You know, let's bring, because we've all got billionaire owners. So I look at Liverpool, and over the years, I think this time has been coming. If we go back to Big Six heading into last season, I thought Liverpool would slip up last season, but you didn't. You near enough had one of your best seasons ever. You got over the line in 2 of them, and you got to the line in 2 others. You know, it was nearly the perfect season for you guys. Mm-hmm. But that coupled up with What I believe to be a lack of real investment over the years has led, in my opinion, to what we're seeing from Liverpool. Now, Thiago, wonderful signing for 25 mil. That is crazy because
Remember
Thiago,
when you were getting all for Thiago?
yeah. Listen, I called him a flop because of his injuries, but then he has
Yeah,
his best 6 months in a Liverpool shirt. Listen, I know I hold Thiago up there. That's why when
I know.
with the first year or so, I just didn't see the Thiago I knew. He comes into his own, but Liverpool were Premier League winners and Champions League winners and didn't really go into the market flexing as such, and I think that's where the owners let Liverpool down and maybe Jurgen Klopp down. Now, listen, I thought the same with Wenger. I thought, listen, the owners are not giving him the money, so he has to chat shit to us about he's only looking for world class talent, or he's only going to bring in people that really add to the squad. No one comes in. We have another season of being top four, which in hindsight, bring it back, but at the time it was very frustrating. Later on, now, if you ask me, I'm looking at him thinking, maybe it was Wenger's stubbornness. Maybe the funds were there and the owners were willing to invest a bit more, but they gave everything to Wenger in terms of the last say, the final say. I'm having doubts whether maybe Jurgen Klopp is in a similar position where he's got the final say. He's a bit committed to the players he has. He doesn't really feel like a refresh was necessary. It's hard outside in to point the blame, but what I know about American owners and what they've done to Arsenal and looking over at United and what they've done over there, I just look at it and think maybe Liverpool are in the same predicament. I think they hit the jackpot with Coutinho and Klopp happening pretty much around the same time, 140 million, and Klopp coming in. I mean, that was literally perfect. I don't think you get that moment again where you get such a fee for a player that really is worth probably half of that fee, and you have a manager coming in that is a top manager that can have those funds to reinvest. And I think what we saw from just that sale and Klopp coming in is the next 6 years of Liverpool, which is a great 6 years. Look at the amount of trophies you've won. Premier League, Champions League at the tip of the iceberg, but you've won other trophies in those 6 years too. So, James, I think it's your owners, but I would be wary of maybe Jurgen Klopp being a bit stubborn as well, and being their shield.
I think you've got quite a few good points there to dissect that down very quickly. FSG, bang on. I think it's kind of a common theme with all American owners where they'll come in. What I believe as well, I think I've mentioned it on the Big Six recently when I was last on the show, about what I believe their expectations is just doesn't align with what Liverpool fans' expectations is. The same expectations that have been created by the manager. I think their expectations is to maximise revenue. Well, how do you do that? There's a new Champions League model that's going to be coming in very soon. New structure and stuff like that, where there's going to be more money accessible to all football clubs who are involved in it. FSG, most certainly the same with Arsenal, the same with United, same with Spurs. All these owners who are trying to be the best of the best, not the best of the best, but make their bank accounts the best that they can be. You need to be in the Champions League. Therefore, I will do enough to go ahead and be in that Champions League. Because if I go out and buy a Jude Bellingham for 100 million, yes, that could improve my chances of winning a Premier League, but I've gone and spent 100 million on Jude Bellingham.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get that much more for winning the league. Oh, and by the way, the league isn't even guaranteed if it's due by Jude Bellingham. So why am I going to take that much of a risk for a team that just finished second, got to a Champions League final and won 2 trophies? Because even if we drop off, surely we're still going to be good enough to finish top 4. Surely. So I think they've explained their financial targets to Jurgen, well, to the board, and then the board have done it to Jurgen and said, this is our financial targets, this is what we're looking for. Let's make do with what we've got. We only need one really good striker. We don't need a multitude of players, which has turned out not to be the case. And then when you talk about Jurgen, again, like I said it on a video, I just think right now, it's weird because he's got that 7-season syndrome. What I always want to ask is what happens after that 7 seasons. So when the realisation does come in, and when it does settle in, right, okay, these players are just not good enough no more. When Jurgen finally realises it himself, then what happens? Or when the board realise it, what happens? Or is it actually just to do with FSG? Maybe saying to Jurgen, make do with what you've got. And then it's not worked out, so FSG are going to be forced their hands. I think possibly FSG will have to spend. They just haven't had to recently because their ambition was never to compete with City. Jurgen just done a great job at overachieving there. Don't know if you think I've got any premise there. Am I just a conspiracy thinker?
I agree. I don't think they expected it either. Like I said, I think they hit the jackpot, and you don't expect to hit the jackpot. I think it just
Yeah.
happened, and that's just what happened with Klopp and that money coming in. It just seemed perfect, At the time, was vexed about Coutinho leaving, but in hindsight, that was, in my opinion, the catalyst for what we've seen in the next 6 years. And you are right. There's this whole 7-year syndrome, and we've heard things like this before, but. In my opinion, it hurts to say, it probably hurts both of us to say, the greatest Premier League, the greatest manager in England for me has been Sir Alex Ferguson. And the best, and I think what sets him apart from Wenger and other long-term managers is his ability to refresh the squad. Pep even spoke about it recently, and he was asked about, winning stuff with the same players all the time. And Pep's like, it's very difficult, hence why I kind of refresh every 3-4 years. You might see big names leaving, but that's because it's difficult to continue that high level. And I don't think anyone's come as close to winning it all as Liverpool did last season. And that is the highest level. So when all the players lift themselves up there and get over the line with two, nearly get over the line with the other two, 1 point off in the end in terms of the Premier League, a 1 goal off a Champions League win. There's a natural... I liken it to maybe Conor McGregor in the UFC. I'm a big UFC fan. Listen, when you're hungry and you just want it all and you want to feed your family and you want to prove you're the best, you will go through brick walls for it. You will tear down everything for it, whether it's UFC, boxing, football, so on. But once you kind of get to the promised land and then you're making that money, you've got that success, you're getting the contracts as players and so on, you're naturally not as hungry as you was trying to get to that stage. It's just a natural thing that happens with the majority of humans, athletes, and so on. There's only a fair few that continue that winning, the ability to have that within up until their 30s, 35s, 40s. Well, near enough 40s, retirement age.
Yeah.
Or something. But yeah, I just think that sets it apart, and Liverpool have failed to refresh adequately enough. As much as I say there might be doubts with Klopp, similarities with Wenger, what I learned is probably focus on the owners. Even if you have your doubts about Klopp, what you do know is Klopp is a top manager. So regardless of a feeling that he might be a shield for them, he might, be letting them do what they want to do and protecting them. Regardless of that, I think you've got a top manager there. You're not too sure about your owners. So if you do, in the end, don't get consistency. If this season does go down the pan and Liverpool fans start kind of asking questions, I'd focus those questions heavily on the owners, because in terms of a manager, I can't think of a manager even to this day that if Klopp were to leave at the end of the season, comes into Liverpool, and I'm as nervy or scared as Liverpool as I have been with Jurgen Klopp over the years. I think you've still got an elite manager there. So it's pear-shaped at the moment. Focus on the owners for me, because Jurgen, as much as he'll defend them or protect them, it's his job, I guess. And he loves you guys. He loves the Liverpool fans. I think he did an interview with Swedish media after the Arsenal game, and you could really see how emotional he was and how affected by it was. And that kind of shows how much he loves the role he's in, how much he loves the club, and how much... Listen, Klopp has really connected the Liverpool fans back with the club as well, because when he came in, yes,
he brought us up.
Yeah,
he brought us up.
He just had that Brendan Rodgers year a couple years before that, but in terms of challenging for leagues and really being that force in Europe again, Klopp brought that all back.
100%. Like I said it last thing as well, by the way. I said with Klopp, I think that man right there, he came in, he lifted us up. He said the first sentence he said was, turns doubters into believers. And whether that makes you throw up or whether that makes you feel dead happy inside, it really did change the culture of the football club. It led us to the best period of success that we've had in the Premier League era. And bear in mind, FSG was here when Jurgen Klopp wasn't, and times weren't so rosy. So for those who may be leaning towards that bandwagon of letting Jurgen Klopp go, just be careful what you wish for, because that might just not be the best thing in the long term. You might get a short-term managerial bounce. That's not what I want. Like Turkish said, I just want someone who I can connect to. And in a time where he's down, in a time where he's struggling to find solutions, I want us to be able to try and pick him up. And then if it gets to a point where it's 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the line and he's still not doing it, then maybe we'll have to have those conversations. As of right now, today, recording with you, my brother, I am in agreement. I think that Jurgen Klopp is just, he's undeniable. So thank you very much for coming on as well, Turkish. I think we delved into a lot there. We went well over the time than what we agreed to beforehand. So just appreciate it. Have you got anything going on? A lot of Big Six watchers watch this channel, and hopefully there might be a small audience who'll go over to yours. So what have you got going on, brother?
Nothing. You know what? Big Six is the main thing. Obviously, I'm on AFTV more or less every other day. But I spoke to you already about Big Six Extra. I want you for that as Liverpool representative. Hopefully, that comes in.
I'm there
for the World Cup just before the second half of the season starts. So look out for that, people. That'll be on the official Big Six channel, Big Six Extra. With, you know, a lot of people say we've got some good depth on the Big Six, and I think it's about time we bring that depth to the forefront and give them your own show as well. So look out for that Big Six Extra, as well as other shows here and there. Just follow up the channels and love for the love.
Love for that. No, thank you for tuning in, Turkish people. Go subscribe to Turkish's channel. Link in the description and in the title. On top of that, the Big Six channel, also link in the description. And yeah, go and check out all the shows on Turkish's channel. Brilliant, brilliant content. Thank you for tuning in as well. Thank you for all the support. Recently, we're now on 65k subscribers. When I came back into YouTube, I was on like 57. That's been a couple of weeks progress. That's a big W. Use it all, belter. And yeah, smash the likes on this video. Keep getting the videos out there. Thank you for tuning in, people. See you later.